Another question. So are you saying the field of the innocence, INNOCENTS, or innocence, as in INNOCENCE? And that's a really good question because I've thought of it both ways. When it first came to my awareness, I thought of it as the second word, innocence, as in a state of innocence. But the more it's revealed to me, I realize that the individualized life forms there, which by the way are very abstract, and by the way they overlap with each other quite a bit, and their physiologies are so very, very different from human physiologies. They almost look like little threads of light, like little kind of wormy figures or something. And yet there's a level of, don't get me wrong, their level of sophistication and incredible sort of very high amount of sentience there is quite fantastic. And it's it in some ways makes being a human, having this kind of physiology look kind of simple in certain ways. For example, their level of devotion makes the devotion that we see in our world. And, I feel like I'm a person who kind of knows devotion because I volunteered my life for world peace since I was 20. So it's like I was always kind of just working for the collective good. And yet when I saw the level of devotion, which is lived at that level of creation, I was blown away. Just blown away. And so this is part of what we're all receiving in tonight's healing session, is the value of the quality of consciousness that resides at that level of creation. But yeah, so it switched in my own mind to answer your question. It switched first from it being a level of tender innocence, as in a state of innocence, to being the realm of the innocents, those who are innocent. Those who are so gentle and so innocent, so beautiful. And I'll tell you, for the longest time, there wasn't a big interface between human reality and that reality because their focus is so broad, it's so cosmic, and it's so essential for the upholdment of life, not just on earth, but in many places, that, what we were doing wasn't in a big way in their awareness, really. But at least this is my experience coming into this space. However, this is the cool part, is that this area of creation and the life force in this area of creation. And remember, guys, what I'm describing is actually a part of you, because at the celestial and spirit level of the being, we are a field. So this is a part of our own being that I'm describing, okay? But it's a part that hasn't really been super invested or involved in our human level of reality, and we haven't been so aware of it and interacting with it from the perspective of us living in our little body antennas of the universe, okay? But now the integration is happening. Now the connection is being made. And as that happens, what's way cool is that this level of your own being, of your own subtle physiology, is ultra responsive to whatever you give it. In fact, remember I talked before about the being of creation and then being flowing and then dharma. Remember I talked about that? Well, the quality of flowing is very, very awake at this level of the physiology. And it's interesting, like I wasn't really necessarily expecting you guys that tonight's webinar would just be like, it's almost like we're going for the PhD or something, where you go down and you just focus on like one part of the field of physics or the field of physiology. They go down, they just isolate and get really into the nitty gritty. But But this nitty-gritty area that we're in, this is a very fine level of physiology, is the place where the potential, it's the place where push comes to shove, where we really get to the aspects of our consciousness that are responsible for the mechanics of manifestation. So it's important. I see that now that we're doing it. Obviously, it seems obvious why we're doing it. But anyway, highly responsive and receptive to whatever we put there. So the love, the appreciation, the honoring, the dignity, the recognition, the gratitude that spontaneously flows into this part of our own being, not only is received and multiplied and given back in vast amounts and quantities from a very deep level of the physiology, from the inside out, so that the body receives strength and wholeness and healing in a very powerful way, but also there is a quality of flow there that allows or supports desire, because this is a webinar about manifestation, so obviously we have to want to manifest something. So this desire becomes one of the players. And as I mentioned before, this level of creation hasn't been super, in its own nature, it kind of exists self-sufficiently. And so things like relative desire to manifest something in our individual dense level of creation, it hasn't previously been so significant to that level of the self.